also like to say that we ask you, Lord, to look over our veterans that are not only at war, but also who come home. I read today that in 2014, 7,400 of our veterans took their own lives. In 2011, it was over 8,000. That's almost as many as the troops we have over right now. So they're coming home facing real difficulties, especially in the 18 to 29 age bracket. So let's all remember them in our daily prayers. And Lord, we ask you to guide them in another direction towards people who provide help. Amen.
Amen. Okay, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our junior councilman, Brandon Hardy.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Sharp? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Lorino? Mr. Toledano?
President, the record should reflect that the first and three Searsucker suit.
Mr. Tanner?
I didn't hear the first word, I heard sucker.
Mr. Groby?
Here.
Mr. Dean? Mr. Canulet? Mr. Belisario?
Second Searsucker will ride.
Miss O'Brien? Mr. Stefanczyk?
Here.
Mr. Bender?
Here.
Miss Blanchard?
Present, but I'll have to correct their math. There's 4.
Mr. Smith?
It's 3.5.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is presentation of proclamation to St. Tammany Parish Government Employee of the Month. Ms. Brister.
Mr. Chairman, if I could take just 1 minute before I present this. When tragedy strikes close to home to our family here, it hurts us all. Today, the sister of Alvin Kirst was from our IT department, was buried. She died this past week, so please remember him and his family, her family, and her 3-year-old son in your prayers also. Thank you. Last month, if you recall, we had an employee of the month that was absent. So Dina, would you come up, please? And we would love to present you with a proclamation. Hopefully you took a nice vacation last month. Good for you. Good for you coming over. So Dina Klein has been a long-time devoted employee of St. Tammany Parish government since June 9th, 1993. And whereas Dina has an exceptional willingness and desire to help others, whether it be her coworkers or her constituents, she routinely goes above and beyond what's asked of her. And whereas Dina is well respected and admired by her superiors and her peers, and whereas Dina Klein is an overall outstanding employee and performs her duties in an exemplary manner. Now, therefore, I, Patricia Brister, as Parish President of St. Tammany, do hereby recognize the hard work and accomplishments of Dina Klein, the June 2016 Employee of the Month. And I encourage all employees of St. Tammany to thank her for her contributions and commitment to our parish. Thank you, Dina, for all you do for all of us. Got to take a picture. Thank you, darling. Thank you. So we also have July Employee of the Month. So I would ask James Taylor if he will come up. There's James. Thank you, James. You had to retire to get this, is that right?
Right.
Whereas James Taylor has been a loyal and devoted employee of St. Tammany Parish for nearly 23 years, being hired first as a chief mechanical inspector and working his way up to his current position as deputy building official for the inspections and enforcement department. And whereas his decades of experience provides the home builders and residents of St. Tammany Parish the very best in customer service, evidenced by the countless thank you cards and letters from them expressing their gratitude. And whereas James is planning for a well-deserved retirement next spring and is currently passing on his vast knowledge to the next generation of inspectors, and whereas James Taylor is an overall outstanding employee and performs his duties in an exemplary manner, now therefore I, Patricia Brister, as Parish President of St. Tammany, do hereby recognize the hard work and accomplishments, the many accomplishments of James Taylor as Employee of the Month for July 2016. And I also encourage all employees of St. Tammany Parish to thank him for his contributions and commitment to our parish. Thank you, James, very much. Appreciate it. Okay. 23 years. What are you going to do when you retire? Keep yourself busy. Thank you. Thank you. And happy retirement when it comes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Pat. Mr. Bender, the introduction of junior council member for July, Brandon Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd ask young Brandon, who's sitting here next to me, to stand up. Brandon is a non-voting citizen so far in my council district, but it's always good to plan ahead. Thank you for laughing, Maureen. No, he's a good young man. Let me read this. St. Tammany Parish Government Certificate of Recognition. St. Tammany Parish formally recognizes Brandon Hardy for serving as junior councilman at the July 7th, 2016 Parish Council meeting, signed by Ms. Patricia Pat Brister, our parish president, and myself as a member of the St. Tammany Parish Council. So Brandon, congratulations, and you can put that, hang that on your wall. Brandon will also receive the parish pin that we all wear, okay? And just a little bit about Brandon. Brandon is 11 years old. He will be going into the 6th grade at St. Margaret Mary. He told me that, what was his favorite food? Spinach. What? It was pizza? I said, I stopped. It was pizza. It was pizza. He's normal. No, Brandon is a good young man from a good family, and you know what? We need our good young people in St. Tammany Parish, and boy, we've got a bunch of them. I could bring thousands up here, and so could every other council member. Brandon, thank you, buddy. Have a seat.
Just watch how you vote, Brandon. That's my seat you're sitting in. Okay. The presentation by the legislative auditor has been moved to next month. So we're at the consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically approved and whole by one vote. Items pulled from the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. We need to pull numbers 5, which is ordinance calendar number 5619, number 6, which is ordinance calendar number 5620. Those are for ordinances for introduction. We then have resolutions 1, 4595, 2, 4604, 3, 4612, and 4, 4613. I think that's it, but let me check. Oh, and 14, resolution 4623. Okay, any other ones, Mr. Sharp? Number 25. Pull that. Sorry, I missed that. We should have pulled it. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Lorino? Mr. Toledano? Mr. Tanner?
Resolution regarding Parish Drainage District number 6.
Which one?
Whose district is that in? Not mine.
Mr. Sharps?
You don't have to close, I have that.
Mr. Groby, Mr. Canulet? Mr. Belisario? Ms. O'Brien? Mr. Bender?
No, sir.
Michelle? Mr. Blanchard? Mr. Smith? Staff have any extra to pull? Audience have anything to pull? Seeing none, motion to adopt the consent calendar. Motion by Mr. Canulet, second by Mr. Belisario. All in favor, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, ordinance calendar number 5619, amending the Parish Code of Ordinances regarding paving, grading, excavation, and placement of fill. I had this pulled because the St. Tammany North Shore Business Council, I believe, has asked that we pull this for consideration and get with them to get some input from them. So I would like to, they're wanting us to table this, and I see no reason why we shouldn't table it. from
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Belisario, second by Ms. O'Brien. Any discussion on the motion to postpone? 1 month. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5620, ordinance amending the Code of Ordinance to establish a program that addresses stormwater and non-stormwater drainage. I know the administration is asking that this be pulled, as well as the home builders. They want to have additional input before we introduce it. So
Okay.
motion to
So
postpone
moved.
for 1 month. Motion by Mr. Belisario, second by Ms. O'Brien. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Number 25, ordinance calendar number 5639, an emergency ordinance to impose a 30-day moratorium on property within the area known as Tammany Terrace subdivision, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp.
Move to remove this from the agenda.
Move to remove by Mr. Sharp, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Johnson, I'd like the record to reflect that I will recuse myself as to that particular motion.
Motion is unanimous with one absent, one recused.
I probably should make note to the audience, my vote is not showing, it's showing up under Chairman Dean, so he is not here tonight. And to change all that around, they have to change all these devices up here. So when I sit over there, it would record, I'm recording under his name tonight. Okay, resolutions number CS 4595 to amend and ratify the annexation of Town of Abita Springs and the rezoning of .85 acres from Parish SA to Town of Abita Springs C, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Toledano.
Mr. Chairman,
This resolution seeks to amend the original agreement, which was defined as a growth management and revenue sharing agreement between the town of Abita and the parish. We have been working with the help of the administration in resolving some issues with regard to that. And that resolution that's before you tonight with these suggested changes will affect that. And the first is, as in the first whereas, the agreement incorrectly identifies the actual base agreement with the parish as an annexation agreement. And I would ask that you consider that first whereas to be changed to include the language in lieu of the annexation agreement, a growth management and revenue sharing agreement. And that's simply a titling issue. The second whereas is unnecessary and not a part of what is the heart of this resolution, so I'm suggesting that second whereas be be deleted. Finally, with regard to the actual resolution itself, the first resolve does not speak again to the substance of the agreement reached with the BETA, so I'm asking that you consider the first resolve deleted. Those three things having been said, this agreement will accomplish what we had set out to do with the Abita Springs. As part of that agreement, Mayor Lemons in the town of Abita has agreed to the 3-year look back and proposed repayment schedule that has been worked out with your administration. So all those things being said, I would move with those suggested changes to that resolution be adopted.
Motion by Mr. Toledano to amend and introduce Resolution 4595. Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Tanner. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Resolution number 2, Resolution CS 4604, authorizing Parish Waterworks District Number 3 to proceed with the issuance, sale, and delivery of water revenue bonds. This was postponed 6/2/16. I believe Mr. Tom Snyder is here.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Chairman. We have present here tonight the chairman of Waterworks District 3, Brent Cordell, along with the engineer and our financial advisor. Mr. Cordell was able to give a presentation to the council at the Agenda Review Committee meeting. We also provided a comprehensive engineering report that was done on the need assessment for this project from Mr. Joe Harmon, our engineer. They're here to answer any additional questions you may have, but I think Mr. Cordell had summarized the need here, the availability of funds based on a new rate structure that was just implemented, and I think we'll be in good shape, and this is a much-needed improvement to this district. So we'll be happy to answer any questions, but I think we've given the information.
Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, we had a very, very good meeting right before the agenda.
Is your light on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Maybe it's not plugged in. What about now? There we go. All right, we're back on talk. Mr. Chairman, we had a very good meeting prior to the agenda review, and then a very detailed presentation at the agenda review. And as I mentioned, this project is very much needed in Covington Country Club, Riverwood, and Riverwood East. So I would ask the council to approve this and move it forward, please.
Motion by Mr. Lorino to approve, seconded by Mr. Groby. Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution number C 4612, resolution approving the holding of an election in the Parish Mosquito Abatement District to authorize the levy of special tax therein. I believe Mr. Palazano is here. Palazano, Chuck.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak before you. We are going for our 10-year millage renewal. The last time we had our millage renewal was in 2007. At that time, our millage was renewed at 5.52 mils. And over the 10-year period since then up to now, we've been gradually, voluntarily reducing our millage, and now we're at 4.2 mils, and that's what we want to go for the next 10 years. You all received a monthly mailing of our monthly report of activities, which contains a detailed report of our operations, as well as a detailed finance report showing all of our check listings of reconciliation of all of our accounts and budget performance. So we want to continue doing what we're doing. We're focusing right now on West Nile virus. That's always our main focus at this time of the year, but also we're doing preparations for Zika in the event that it does enter our community. We've done a lot of surveillance and preparation for that, and we've got a response plan. So we're asking for you all to continue to allow us to operate for another 10 years with this renewal. Thank you.
Hold on a minute. I need a motion to,
So moved.
motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
Mr.
TJ.
Chairman, whenever you come around, I'd
Yeah,
have
okay.
to.
I don't have a question, Steve, or council, but I just wanted to recognize again the great work that I feel, and I think many of my other citizens and constituents of this parish will agree with me, that the mosquito abatement district and the service that it provides for us in that area has been just unbelievably exceptional. And Chuck, how long has that abatement district been in existence?
It started in 1969.
I thought so. So during my years before the mosquito abatement district, fighting mosquitoes was quite a challenge here in this parish. But with the onset of the mosquito abatement district, up until this time, they have done an exemplary job. And we just want to encourage the voters. And we know we're in an anti-tax environment here right now, but we just want to also speak to the voters who may be tuning in that we would like to encourage you to support this initiative that's being put on the ballot. Thank you, Chuck, for the great job that you all have done.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Big Jerry?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck, I want to echo what my colleague, Mr. Smith, has said. I also want you to know I do read the monthly report. So I appreciate you sending it. Now, when I say that, there are parts of it that I have to admit I don't fully understand because it's so technical. But that gives me a good feeling. And when I look at the members of the board and their qualifications, your experience, your people, but I look at, in that first 2 pages, West Nile and Zika. And it's good to see no Zika, even though there were 4 in the state, which is unfortunate, but none here. And usually the same with West Nile. I do want to thank you, and I just want to add to my colleagues and the people in the audience. Many years ago, as an elected official, I happened to be at a conference, and someone saw that I was from Slidell, Louisiana, and they stopped me and they said to me, "Sir, I just want to tell you that you all have the finest mosquito control program in the entire United States, in my opinion." This was a person from up north. I just remember they were from a northern state, a Midwestern state. And I said, "Well, thank you very much." That's quite impressive, and certainly we appreciate it. I would also like to lend my support because mosquito abatement in the world in which we live today is extremely important, so I certainly support this. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. I forgot to recognize Vicki Taylor, our supervisory entomologist. She's sitting right here, and she's done a wonderful job for us.
Okay. Chris?
Congratulations, Chuck.
Thank you.
You do a fantastic job. You've done a fantastic job for years. I don't think many people know, but
Anybody else?
we'll be losing a lot when you retire, but you have definitely earned it, and we can't thank you enough, especially me.
We have a wonderful Board of Commissioners and a fantastic staff that are very dedicated and loyal, and we thank you all for all of your support, because without you, we couldn't exist.
Chuck, I just want to say, as a new councilman, I get a lot of things in the mail, and I do understand what you're sending, almost all of it, a little bit more than Mr. Bender, though. But nevertheless, I just want to say it is very refreshing to see a report come, and it really helps someone like myself who just came aboard and trying to figure out all the different departments. So I just want to say thank you very much. I didn't get to work with you for a long time, but your reputation precedes you, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir. And like I said, we have a fantastic
I think Mr.
staff.
Brister's going to say what I had hoped to say, but
Well,
Pat?
if you will allow me, I think a true test of someone doing their job very, very well is you never hear anything about what they're doing. You just go about doing your job every day. You do it well. Since I was on the council starting in 2000, I have received those reports, and they are important to us. Before, it was a nuisance to have mosquitoes around. Now, it's health. I mean, it really is vital that we know that you're doing the job that you've done for years, and you did set the bar for other mosquito control agencies, and you are the model. I know this year you have had a tragedy, and we all felt your hurt and pain also, but I know you kept right on going with what you needed to do every day, and we'll miss you, but I know you're well prepared, and you have your next generation coming in to do the job too.
Well,
So
actually,
thank you.
Vicki is going to be the one that's going to take
I would love for her to come
over.
up and if just so we could recognize her too, because we'll be working with her too. And you've got big shoes to fill, you know. So, but thank you very much, Chuck, for what you
Well,
do
thank
and
you.
have done for years.
And again, I thank y'all for all of y'all's support throughout the many years I've been here, always.
What I would tell you is that this group has always watched their taxes, always, I think they've been the example that needs to be set throughout this parish. Instead of keep asking for more money and spending it, they've constantly reduced their taxes, rolled their millage back every year, and I think that's been a phenomenal asset. When it started way back at 10 mills and has come down to where it is today. Last but not least, as the council may or may not know, the reason the two of them are standing up there, Chuck is retiring. And I think he's been an outstanding example for this parish and all the people. He will be retiring, I think, at the end of this month.
Right.
So, thank you,
Thank you very much.
congratulations, and good luck in your retirement.
Excuse me, Mr. Stavancic, if I may take this opportunity, I just actually wrote a letter. Pardon me?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wrote Chuck today commending him for his service. In view of the comments of Ms. Brister and the other members of the council, I would offer a resolution be spread on the record of, I'm sorry.
There's already a motion on the floor.
Did I misunderstand that? I apologize. I'll defer for the moment then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chuck, and to your entire department, I wanted to remind the public of the loss of your 2 employees just recently. That was a big hit for any department to take with the dedication and the knowledge they took with them, unfortunately. And you have our condolences, and I doubt seriously you'll be able to replace them anytime soon. Sorry for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Then please vote on the resolution.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Now, Mr. Toledano.
Thank you, and I apologize for my parliamentary faux pas, but.
We understand from the rookies.
And it's every day's a learning experience. That being said, in view of the comments of the administration as well as this council and myself also experiencing the outstanding job that Chuck and his group has done, I would ask that our fellow members consider a resolution to be spread across the record of this parish government, and particularly in this meeting, commending Chuck for his outstanding years of service to St. Tammany Parish and congratulating him on his retirement. And that resolution, I'm sure, can be confected in proper form by our council.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
And if we get that all typed up, we'll hand deliver it to him at his retirement. Yeah. Thank you, Chuck. Okay. Next item is Resolution C 4613, resolution approving the holding of an election of Parish Fire Protection District Number 7 to authorize the levy of special tax. Motion approved by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. We have Mr. Sluter here.
Branch Sluter with Foley Udell. This is a renewal for 10 years of their 5.21 mills. Again, the election will be December 10th. Chief Whitehead is here if there are any questions. Or, Chief, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
I'd like to comment on a couple of things. Thank you for considering this resolution tonight. A couple of things. I just wanted to say again that this is renewal of 5.21 mills. Our current millage stands at 20.2, which is the second lowest millage rate of fire districts in the parish. And we service, although the population isn't as dense, we service about 21% of the parish. So we still are required to have a number of fire stations and all the apparatus required to be there. And we have the second lowest revenue of any fire district. And if you look at some numbers, just to give you some example, if you look at a ratio of dollars per acre, we receive around $6.40 per acre. And the highest in the district is around $200 an acre. So, and we have been at this millage rate for many years, and so we're just asking to renew it, and we would appreciate your consideration on that.
Any questions? Thank you. Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, resolution number 4623, to concur, not to concur with the Covington annexation and rezoning of 1.16 acres from Parish A4 to Covington PRD, Ward 3, District 3.
I move to concur.
Motion to concur by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Toledano. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. That completes the consent calendar. We'll now go to appeals. Jessica Lacey appealing the zoning commission's denial on January 5th, 2016 to reclassify 2.88 acres located at northeast corner of North Park Boulevard and Park Place being 114 North Park Boulevard, Covington, from HC Highway Commercial District to HC2A Highway Commercial District, Ward 1, District 5. Ms. Lacey. Jessica Lacey.
Mr. Fonte, this matter is in my district. Do I understand that there's nobody here representing the appellant? Is that correct?
I have a card from Lee Mathis.
Mr. Mathis represents the local North Park Homeowners
Okay.
Association.
Okay.
Do you want to hear from Mr. Mathis? Mr. Mathis represents an opposition to the appeal.
He's opposed to the appeal?
Yes. And unless
Unless he has something that
yeah,
he dearly wants to talk about, you can consider then the motion to,
then
whatever you,
yeah, my motion is
process
to concur with the zoning denial, stating for the record that some of the agreements that were intended to be reached with the appellant have not been confected, and therefore I believe that this matter should be continued to be denied. So my motion is to concur with the denial.
okay. Seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion is to concur.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, and adoption of a resolution, motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Canulet. Please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
And second one is, second appeal is Dwight Dosky, P.J. Stalkum, Nancy Wagner, and all, et al. Appealing the zoning commission's approval on June 7, 2016 to rezone 80.37 acres located north of West Shore Drive Extension and north of Pinnacle Parkway from A4 single-family residential to A4 single-family residential in PUD, Ward 1, District 1. The applicant is Joshua Weiner. So, Mr. Dosky?
P.J. Stabler, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Dosky's not here tonight. His wife is, however.
Remind you that you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I have some photographs which we'd like to pass out to the council, which deal with this issue.
You have 5 minutes to talk on your side, and then there will be, the other side will be given 5 minutes, and then there'll be two minutes rebuttal each side.
This is the subdivision that's situated between the Colonial Pinnacle Shopping Center and Flower Estates South. It's a subdivision that's under construction. No homes have yet been built. The reason we opposed, the proposal before the zoning commission was to approve a PUD plan. It was previously approved for A4A zoning, I believe. Now they want to change it to a PUD. We opposed the PUD. And the reason we opposed the PUD was because this project is in violation of its drainage plan and all of its permits. This plan was originally presented to drain into a ditch. I know some of you may not be familiar with this, but on the south end of Flower Estates, there is a drainage ditch that runs from almost along Highway 21 to a cut through the old channel of Flowers Bayou. The last couple of hundred feet of the ditch are no more than about 2 feet wide and a foot deep. But on the western end of the ditch, we're talking about serious depth in excess of 10 feet, width in excess of 20 feet. The water was originally supposed to flow from the subdivision into the ditch, where it would then be filtered through several hundred feet of vegetation in the ditch. That was the proposal, the plans that were presented to Wildlife and Fisheries for the Scenic Rivers permit. That was the plans that were presented to the Corps of Engineers for the Corps of Engineers permit. Unfortunately, that's not what was built on the ground, because about 6 months later, the developer went to the parish and got a revised plan approved that gathers all of the water, and we're now talking about water that drains about 35 to 39 acres of this 80-acre subdivision. And he changed the plans so that this water is going to be gathered in catch basins and flow east to west, and then around the back of the subdivision into a 42-inch pipe, where it then flows back east and deposits itself at the edge of a 100-foot no-cut buffer right next to Dale Viola's property. Now, previously, some of that water did drain into the ditch, but it drained into the ditch 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet further to the west, where there was wetland retention on the area. The ditch itself slowed down the force. Now all of this water is being gathered and just shot down the ditch and deposited onto Mr. Viola's property. We've passed out some photographs. The front page of the photographs show a kayak trip that Mr. Viola took going down Flowers Bayou, and you can see where the silt-laden water is flowing into the bayou. This was Father's Day. The next page is more of the same. And then the third page, you start to see the water flowing through the woods, the 100-foot no-cut buffer, and then you see the 42-inch drain where the water's flowing out, and then you see what's happened. There was a silt fence installed to contain the water and the silt, but it's overwhelmed almost every time it rains. And then when you turn to the very back page, you see what Mr. Viola's property looks like after a 1-inch rain. Now, I thought it was somewhat ironic that we had a resolution to deal with stormwater on the agenda. This is a stormwater issue that needs to be addressed. We do not believe it's appropriate to approve a PUD when they're in violation of their permits. I spoke with a gentleman at Wildlife and Fisheries this afternoon. I was told that he had gone out there and issued a clean bill of health. He said, yes, he did go out there. His name was Matt Weigel. He said, yes, he did go out there, but he didn't issue a clean bill of health. He found clear evidence of violations of the permit. He said he did not write citations today because he's working with, as he put it, the stormwater people, I think referring to the engineers for the developer. I find it incredible that we can be approving projects that are just in violation of all the permits. There's a requirement that you have a permit, but apparently if the piece of paper says permit, it's good. I have with me the Scenic Rivers permit today. It came from Parish files. 2 points worth noting. Number one, requirement, general condition number one, adequate erosion sediment control measures ought to be taken during the implementation of this project to ensure that no sediments or other construction activity-related debris are allowed to enter Flower Bayou in the Tchefuncte River. The pictures show that is clearly not the case. Condition number four, this project must be carried out in a manner consistent with the design that the applicant submitted during the permit process and as depicted in the attached final plats dated April 30, 2015. Those are the plats that show the water draining into the ditch, not the use of a 42-inch drainage pipe to channel all the water to Mr. Viola's property. Condition 4 goes on. Should significant physical modification of to the project become necessary during implementation of the project or after its completion, the permit holder will submit a letter of explanation within 1 week of discovery to determine if another permit's required.
Your 5 minutes is up?
That's the last thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
They haven't done it.
Thank you.
And I think we've made that point. Thank you.
We have the other side. Oh, Paul?
Yes.
Paul Marone. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Stefanski, Paul Marone on behalf of the developer, Waycross Development and the Wayner family. I will begin where I ended with your zoning commission. Everything you just heard has nothing to do with the PUD request that is before you this evening. What Mr. Stakelum just laid out for you is complaints about a planning issue with regards to drainage and with regards to sediment control, none of which have anything to do with a PUD overlay. We're not changing the project in any way other than the issuance of an overlay to adjust some setbacks. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. If this council were to decide this evening to deny the PUD request, we would not be an inch closer, not an inch closer to the resolution of any of the issues that Mr. Stakelum just brought up. And I believe it is for that reason that your staff recommended approval of our request and that your zoning commission almost unanimously requested or suggested and recommended approval of our request. All this request about this evening is a zoning issue and a minor modification to certain setbacks to accommodate the nature of our development. That's all. With regards to the drainage, we are in compliance with the plan that was approved by the parish. Your chief engineer was out there today looking at the project. Department of Wildlife and Fisheries was out there today looking at the project. We have built the project in accordance with the drainage plan that was approved. When a project is under construction, you are always going to deal with siltation. Is that a real and legitimate question? Yes. Is it a situation that my client takes very seriously and that we have conveyed to Mr. Stakelum and his group? Yes. I passed around some pictures that show the improvements that we have made to our sediment control. That was done over the course of the 4th of July weekend. We take very seriously addressing these issues. When the site is under construction, we install sediment control, then we monitor that sediment control. If it needs to be revised and made better, then we do that. And that is exactly what we have committed to do to the residents. That is exactly what we've committed to do to Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and to your engineering department. To suggest that because we are still battling with sediment control during the construction process You should not approve a PUD overlay that deals nothing to do with drainage, sediment, or anything of the nature, but only deals with setbacks, is inappropriate in my view. I have tried to convey this to Mr. Stakelum. He and I respectfully disagree on that point. If you take everything he says is true, then what we have is a compliance issue. And we need to deal with it as a compliance issue in a planning scenario, not in a zoning scenario where all we're talking about is a PUD overlay. We're not changing the lot layout. We're not changing the number of lots, except I think we are dropping 2 lots than what was originally approved. We're not changing the drainage plan. All we're doing is modifying the setbacks for a development that is under construction. Nobody lives there yet. So the forum for his complaints is not here, not this evening. We would respectfully request that you follow the recommendation of your staff and your zoning commission, and that you approve our request this evening. In doing so, I want to be clear to each one of you. We take very serious the concerns of Mr. Stakelum, Mr. Viola, and the other residents. We committed to them, and we will commit to you that we will continue to work through their issues with them. Your action tonight will not deter us in any way. We're committed to doing that. But your action tonight is not related to what they are concerned about. And for that reason, we would respectfully request your denial of their appeal.
Thank you. Does he have any time left? 1 minute, okay. The other side, you have 2 minutes, and of course I have 4 cards up here, 3 more cards up here from people who want to speak. You're taking their time.
I'm going to be real quick, Mr. Stefanczyk.
Unless you want them to have time.
He talked about building it according to their approved drainage plans. That's the plan the parish approved. It's not the plan on which any of the permits were based. You're being asked to approve a PUD overlay. That's a PUD, okay? There are certain requirements he has to meet to get a PUD. Among those requirements are that he has to have the proper permits. He does not have the proper permits at this stage of the game. And the reason he doesn't have the proper permits is because he got the permits under one drainage plan that was never built. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Do you have any time left?
Anybody else?
Someone else want to speak from that? Because I got a Nancy Wagner and Dale Viola.
I'm Nancy Wagner. I live on Flowers Bayou. My husband's Dwight Dosky. I just really want to ask the council to overturn this decision and let them go back to the zoning commission with the proper paperwork. Let them follow the plans that they say that they are going to follow. Because it's like you give your car keys to your kid and your kid wrecks your car and they ask for it again and you say, okay, you don't have to do what I asked you to do the first time. So I really, really think, and only having limited number of minutes, we all submitted written documents. I hope you read them. I hope you read the original staff reports. And I really hope that you would just give this more consideration for them to go back, because the PUD does take up more space. The way they're going to do the lots, there's going to be less ground. So it does have something to do with all these problems, whether they admit that or not. Thank you.
Okay. Any time left?
Hi, I'm Dale Viola, and I greatly appreciate your time, Council, Madam President. I submitted the pictures because that's what I have. And since the Zoning Commission, I have studied 6 hours of your records, public records. I have yet to be able to be provided the actual plans that were approved by engineering. They are telling me that they cannot find them, that they are not in the files, and a public records request has been in place for 30 days. That's all I can say, is that I'd like to have been able to read them before tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal on the other side. Mr. Marone, I have a card from Tommy Buckle as well.
He'll defer to me.
Okay.
In rebuttal briefly, the paperwork for the PUD overlay is in order. What we're here about is the PUD overlay, and the paperwork is in order. There's no question about that. with regards to the plans, we have had no notice from the Corps of Engineers or the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries that our permits are in jeopardy or are out of compliance in any way. If there is something that we need to supplement to those groups, we will supplement to those groups. However, you do not need their approval to grant a PUD overlay. That has nothing to do with your jurisdiction with regards to the zoning and the overlay on this property. We would respectfully, again, request your approval of the PUD overlay and all it entails. We will continue to work with Mr. Stakelum and Mr. Viola on their issues, but those issues are not properly before you this evening, and we ask you follow the lead of your staff and your zoning commission with regards to our request and deny this appeal.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Morone, I have just a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
I was noticing on the original staff report, correct me if I'm wrong, that the current zoning is for 143 lots or thereabout?
I don't have that number, but I believe that's about correct, yes.
Okay. And the number of lots that you're planning in this PUD is 143 perhaps minus 2?
That's correct.
Okay. Getting on to a compliance issue that you brought up, okay? My last question is this. Knowing the long, ongoing parish laws and ordinances regarding maintaining your own water, okay? Not allowing that to flow onto other properties and so forth, okay? Am I making the correct assumption that your plan will comply with that ordinance?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
the plan does comply.
So what you're saying to me is that there is no intention to divert water to anyone else. You'll keep your own, and your lots will be reduced by approximately 2.
That's right. The lots will be reduced by 2, and with regards to the water is going now where it has always gone. The siltation is an issue, and we are working on that on a daily basis, and will continue to do so to make sure that it is in compliance and that we have the best management practices in place to deal with those.
Thank you, Mr. Morone.
Any other? Mr. Smith?
Yes, to Mr. Morone, if I may. Paul,
yes, sir.
During the course of the explanation that my colleague just asked you about, so you reducing your total number of lots by 2, would that be the reason, and I'm trying to make sure I understand this, that you are moving to the PUD so that you can meet the setback requirements because of a larger situation on the smaller total number of lots?
The reduction of the number of lots really is not material to the PUD request. The PUD request is only because under the underlying zoning of A4A, there is set side, rear, and front setbacks. There are only 2 methods to change that or to modify that in any way. One would be to go to the Board of Zoning Adjustments for each lot and request a variance. Well, we have numerous lots that are involved here. The other way would be to do a PUD overlay. That would allow us the flexibility to address the setback issues in Globo. And so that's the reason for the PUD overlay request.
And secondly, the pictures that we've been provided with the apparent water moving from your property to other properties is apparent. And what you provided us with, though, are you assuring us, is that to assure us that this new plan that you are proposing is going to eliminate this situation?
As I said before, we believe that the sedimentation controls that you see there will address the sediment that is on our property and leaving our property. However, it is a continual battle, and while we believe that it will address it, what we are obligated to do and what we will continue to do is to continue to monitor that. If it does not do it, then it is incumbent upon us to redouble our efforts to make new improvements, new containment facilities, which we are committed to doing. And that will be our obligation throughout the course of the construction of the project.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion, Mr. Lorino?
Paul, let me just see if I'm new on this, but I just want to make sure of a couple of things. In your discussions with the homeowners, did you all sit down and talk about signing any agreement that what you're talking about you would go ahead and do? I know you all will, but was there any discussion in putting any restrictions that will follow and so forth and so on?
Yeah, we have had good dialogue with Mr. Stakela, Mr. Viola, and Mr. Ouellette. We met as recently as this morning. We outlined a number of things that they would like to see, some things that we are willing to do. So yes, we are in those discussions, and we are going to continue with those discussions to try to get that to a more formal understanding.
So you all are in agreement to work with them and do that, move it forward?
Without question, yes, sir.
All right, one other question. I don't want any water going on anybody else's property, and we understand that, but I just want to be clear. If this proposal that you have in place does not work, you are going to go back to the table and come up with another idea, another proposal, until you get it right.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I've listened to this, and I concur with Paul. I sat on planning and zoning for years. What we're talking about here is purely a planning commission decision and not a zoning decision.
Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Canulette?
Move to concur with the zoning.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Canulette, seconded by Mr. Belisario to concur with zoning. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Need to introduce an ordinance. Motion by Mr. Canulette, seconded by Mr. Belisario. That's it. I'm going to stop here a minute. Ms. Carr, if you're in the audience. I just received
evening.
this card. This item was voted upon earlier this evening and introduced. It will be heard at next month's meeting, and it'll probably be relatively early on the agenda, so you need to be here. You know, this thing was heard an hour ago, and we're not, we don't go back and necessarily reconsider opening the whole consent calendar. There was not a request by anyone to pull that item for tonight, so I'm not going to accept your card. Understand that.
Good evening. I would just like to say that today the heirs of Old Fashioned have revoked the park, so we wanted you to know that it is now a public record for the second revocation. And I would like to present a packet to the council. And thank you very much, because
hand those.
I have sat in your position and know the duties and obligations of the office.
Okay.
With James Thompson, who's still here.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay. We're for ordinances for adoption, ordinance calendar number 5569, AA ordinance to impose a 6-month moratorium within Oak Down subdivision, Ward 8, District 9. Mr. Belisario. Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulette. Any discussion? Please vote for your lights.
Mr. Tanner? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Ordinance calendar number 5591 to extend for 6 months the moratorium on property within a portion of voting precinct 914, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith?
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Toledano, Mr. Tanner?
Did you wake up?
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
You guys down there wake up and vote? Okay. Okay, ordinance calendar number 5592 to extend for additional 6 months a moratorium of the opening of new streets in Angelic Estates, Ward 5, District 5. Mr. Toledano.
Mr. Stefanski, thank you very much. I'll move for the adoption.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5593, an ordinance to extend for an additional 6 months of moratorium for property abutting the Louisiana Highway 21 Plan Corridor from Brewster Road North to Azalea Drive, Ward 1, District 1. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5595, an ordinance to relocate precinct 816 from Graves Memorial Baptist Church in Slidell to Little Oak Middle School in Slidell. Motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? See, Mr. Toledano, you got discussion?
No,
Okay. Thank you. Please vote. Who hasn't voted?
Oh, there it is. Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5596, an ordinance to relocate precinct 806 from Grace Memorial Baptist Church in Slidell to Boyette Junior High School in Slidell. Motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5597, an ordinance to amend the 2016 operating budget, amendment number 7. Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Ms. Blanchard. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5599, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .05 acres from A3 to A3 and MHO Ward 10, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Bender and his junior colleague. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you skipped item number 8, 5598.
You're right, I did. We'll vote on this one, go back.
Okay.
Thank you. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar, I'm going back to item 8, ordinance calendar number 5598 to correct the road and drainage inventory to include Buck Run lateral, Ward 9, District 9. Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5600, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .05 acres from A3 and A3 to A3 and MHO, Ward 10, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Groby. Any discussion? Please vote for your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5601, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.984 acres from A2 to A2 and MHO Ward 7, District 7. Mr. Roby.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Roby, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5602, an ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.84 acres located east of Highway 59 south of Loda Street and north of Viola Street from A3 Suburban District to NC6 Public Cultural and Recreational District, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Toledano. Okay. Moved by Mr. Toledano, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5603, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 6.094 acres from I-2 to HC2, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Toledano. Motion by Mr. Toledano, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5604, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.04 acres from A2 to A3, Ward 8, District 11. It's in my district. Motion by Ms. Blanchard, seconded by Mr. Seconded by Mr. Bender and his junior colleague. So, any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5605, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.33 acres from A1 to A1 and MHO, Ward 2, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Ms. Blanchard. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5606, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 22,000 square feet from A3 to A3 and MHO, Ward 10, District 6. Mr. Tanner.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Toledano. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5607, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 5.9 acres from A3 to NC6, Ward 5, District 5. Mr. Toledano. Motion to adopt, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5608, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 20,000 square feet from A3 to A3 at MHO, Ward 6, District 6. Mr. Tanner.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Groby. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Waiting on somebody?
There it went. Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5609, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.68 acres from A2 to A3, Ward 1, District 1. Motion by Mr. Lorino, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
I saw him twitch down there, so. Ordinance calendar number 5610, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .97 acres from A3 to A3 and MHO, Ward 6, District 10, or Ward 6 and 10, District 6. Mr. Tanner.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Lorino. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5611, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 18,905 square feet from A3 to A3 in MHO, Ward 6, District 6. Mr. Tanner?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Toledano. This has to be subject to the 10-day appeal period. The zoning commission just approved this, and the 10-day appeal period is not over, so we may go ahead with this, pending with that in mind. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance count number 5612, amending the official zoning map to reclassify 5.802 acres from A2 to A2 and RO, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp. Motion by Mr. Sharp, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance count number 5613, establishing requirements for the provision of grease traps and interceptors for certain commercial and industrial structures within unincorporated St. Tammany Parish. Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. I was debating on which hand I was going to, over there I was going to call.
Mr. Sharp, Mr. Thompson. Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5614, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 4.547 acres from CB1 RO and A2 to A2 and NC6 Ward 1 District 1. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
There's a resolution of appointments. A resolution to appoint or reappoint two members of St. Tammany Parish Development District. We had this last month. Edward Canton had requested reappointment, and he has been nominated. Are there any other nominations at this time? If not, I would ask that a motion be that we accept Mr. Canton. So Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Bender. Any discussion on this motion? Please vote by your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
We have one more position on there that can be filled at some point in time, so we need to go ahead and look for that. Discussion and other matters. Notice of a public hearing. Notice is hereby given that at its meeting to be held on Thursday, September 1st, 2016 at 6 p.m. at the council chambers of the Parish Government Complex, 21490 Coop Drive, Mandeville. The Parish Council of the Parish of St. Tammany, State of Louisiana, plans to consider adopting a resolution ordering and calling an election to be held within the Parish of St. Tammany, State of Louisiana, to authorize a renewal of ad valorem taxes. That's just an announcement that has to be read. Okay? Is that on this one?
Yeah, on the next one.
On the next one, okay. Last item on here is a motion to refer to the zoning commission for recommendation the proposed rezoning of 422.17 acres from A3 to A3 and MHO District 6. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson and Mr. Carlo Hernandez. Do you have the amounts?
Thank you. Carlo Hernandez. I'm here to point out to you that I believe you're going to tie the maximum waiver of fees that's been approved by this council with this next action here. And I just want to read again the number of acres that we're talking about. 422.17 acres plus 248.61 acres, or a total of 670.78 acres. Now, the code provides for a maximum zoning fee of $1,250. Otherwise, we're talking about $33,500 if there was no maximum. So, but there's still a processing fee of $250 plus an advertising fee of $75, or you're about to waive then a fee of $1,575. Now, it's interesting that now we will have these 670 acres, and some of which I'm sure you noted, certainly Mr. Tanner did, that there were some adoptions here dealing with this very same area. So now I'm assuming that they won't have to go through the process of going through the zoning commission as such for that. They will now simply get a permit now to put up a manufactured home. Some people call it a trailer. So these 670 acres now, just to note for the public, that you will now have the possibility, assuming this is adopted by the, and I'm sure it will be, by the Planning Commission and then by the council, that you will now have the ability to put up these manufactured homes in these 670 acres, which fees are not going to be collected, whereas some of these fees were collected in prior actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move for adoption.
Thank you. Move to refer.
Refer to
Zoning Commission.
Planning Commission.
Motion, yes. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion?
Mr. Stefanski,
Yes.
I have a question. I just want to be clear. I support this, but this is referred to the zoning commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to make note, I want to make sure that I heard this correctly, okay? I think that what Mr. Hernandez said is that this would not have to go to the zoning commission. He said, I'm sure it'll just go straight to planning and administration and so forth. I'm not trying to take, but the point is, it is a motion to refer to the zoning commission.
That is correct.
We're not skipping a step. It's referring to them. Excuse me, Mr. Tanner, but I wanted to make that correction.
Thank you.
Steve, just one for Sydney.
Tom? Okay. Mr.
How much
Bellisario.
of this land has already been developed?
This is Hillcrest subdivision, Parish Street, T Street, all those areas where a significant portion of the half of the zoning cases tonight were mobile home overlays. A significant number of those were in this subdivision. This is something we've actually suggested to Mr. Tanner. If mobile homes are appropriate in this area, there's no reason to run the public through this
Right.
process.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please vote for your lights.
Mr. Thompson? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, we're going to the off-the-floor items. Need a motion to open the floor for the items off the floor. Motion by Mr. Bellisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Resolution to reappoint 5 members of the St. Tammany Parish Commission on Cultural Arts: Stephen Cephalou, Lisa Barnett, Jennifer Besh, and have requested reappointment. Mandy Manzano, Michael Blush, Margaret Laurent, Christine Muntan, and Laura Hines Prisco have requested appointment. This is a parish-wide board. We can either make some nominations tonight, whatever we wish to do, or nominate everybody and then vote on this at the next meeting. So however, to your pleasure. Mr. Tanner?
I move that we nominate those that are on here and vote on them at the next meeting.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Tanner to nominate all the people that have been listed, seconded by Ms. O'Brien.
Mr. Stefanski, I just have a quick question. The current members, the motion is to vote on the 3 current members for reappointment?
No. All of them will be voted upon next time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood Mr. Tanner's motion.
Yeah, we're just opening for nominations. It needs to lay over a month.
Okay, and could I ask, if, Don, have you received, could I ask Mr. Henderson, Mr. Chairman?
Go
Have
ahead.
we received resumes on the people that we're not familiar with?
Excuse me, Mr. Bender. Resumes were sent to all council members mid-June for all these candidates.
Makes me look good, doesn't it? I must have been on vacation.
I think Mr. Bender would like you to recirculate that to him.
You must have been on vacation and ain't back yet, huh? Okay? Thank you. Okay, a motion to appoint all these, and I had a second, so let's vote on that. I don't think we voted. Yeah, we're nominating to, okay, so we close the nominations? We don't have to vote, no. Okay, they've been nominated, so let's go to the next one, resolutions. Ordering and calling a special election to be held in Parish Road Lighting District Number 11 to authorize renewal of service charge therein. Ms. Blanchard.
I make the resolution.
Motion by Ms. Blanchard, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, please vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Anything else to come off the floor tonight? Mr. Sharp? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Loreno? Mr. Toledano? Mr. Tanner? Mr. Groby? Mr. Canulette? Keep wanting to skip you, don't I? Mr. Belisario? Ms. O'Brien? Ms. Bender? Ms. Blanchard? Mr. Smith? Staff have anything to come off the floor? Seeing none, the motion to adjourn, the meeting is adjourned.